This is Thank You Mama, weekly lessons from mothers all around the world. When I was 21, after I graduated from university and got my first job and my first apartment, somehow family Christmases became my responsibilities. We were a strange little family of three. My parents separated when I was 9 and have since then lived apart. My mom in Zagreb, Croatia, and my father in Vienna, Austria. But they never divorced. They had this strange arrangement of still officially being married, but not really. Christmas is a big family thing in our part of Europe. It's celebrated on Christmas Eve, and that's when the whole family gets together, decorates the tree, opens presents, and then has dinner. So every year, I would buy a tree and carry it home, buy food for the whole family for this holiday that lasts for 3 days, buy and wrap presents from everybody for everybody, decorate the apartment, and so on and so forth. Nobody asked me to do this. It somehow just happened, and everybody was happy to keep it that way. And my wish to keep this tradition was so strong that I did not question it. I had a full-time job, a very demanding job, and it was quite a lot of work. I remember one Christmas asking my mom to please this time arrive to Vienna a few days before Christmas Eve to help me out. She arrived just in time to sit down and have Christmas Eve dinner with us. I was terribly, terribly hurt. But still, it wouldn't occur to me to say no to being the one holding things together, and I continued doing it by myself for ever. It's interesting, this being a daughter. We do these kind of things that aren't expected of a son, and we just do them. Nobody asks us, nobody recognizes them, but everybody expects them. And they are so deeply programmed into us, partially by society and partially by, I believe, by biology, that we're not even aware of the workload and of the fact that actually we have the right to decide if we want to do this or not. Do we really have to be the glue that holds everything together? Thankfully, there are women out there asking these questions and helping us create an awareness of this situation and of the fact that things don't have to stay this way. So you can imagine how excited I was to discover my guest Allison Alford and her new book, Good Daughtering: The Work You've Always Done, The Credit You've Never Gotten, and How to Finally Feel Like Enough. Enjoy. Hello and welcome to Thank You Mama. My name is Anna Teider. My guest today is Allison Alford. Dr. Allison Alford is a communications professor at the Baylor University. She's the author of Good Daughtering, a book that just came out last week. Allison,
Yes.
Is it? Yes, last week. So it's very, very brand new. And in this book, she shines a light on all the visible and invisible work daughters do for their families. The emotional, logistical, cultural work we do to keep our families together. And I learned about this book and I was so excited. Listen, I just told you, the moment I learned about it, I thought finally somebody wrote about this topic. Very excited you did, and very excited you're here, and you're going to share more about this book and about the lessons you've learned from your mom with me and my audience. So welcome.
Thank you so much, Anna. I'm really glad to be here. And I think this is such an important topic that you cover in your podcast, and such a wonderful contribution to the cultural ways that women think about mothering. And I'm excited to add daughtering to that conversation.
Tell me first, I'm so curious, how did you start researching this topic? How did daughtering become your topic? And thus, how did the book happen?
So I was earning my PhD, my doctorate in Texas over 10 years ago. And when I went to get that degree, I already knew that I was interested in families and family communication. I come from a family that's very loving and healthy and effective, but also imperfect, not, doesn't do everything right and still has drama people and background trauma from the past or, things that come up. So I had some life experiences that made me want to study families. So I get into studying families. I'm reading about mothers and I'm looking for mothers and daughters. At that time, I was an adult daughter. I was married. I had 2 kids. So I was a little bit older than some of the colleagues that were in my program. And so I was thinking a little differently than they were. And as I was researching, I realized, well, you can find a lot of things about adolescent daughters, teenagers. And you can find a lot of research about daughters when they're taking care of their elderly or ill parent, so daughters in their 60s and 70s and 80s even. And then I also realized that if I was reading a study and I saw that it did have mothers and daughters in it, a lot of times it was just really still about the mothers, about mothers of women who have babies, about mothers of women who have breast cancer or mothers, and it just was always this sort of power imbalance. And as I was already a mother myself, so I wasn't in any way thinking that motherhood is unimportant or uninteresting, but I was just noticing this is lacking. We're lacking the 2-sided story because in my relationships, whether it be marriage, friendship, family relationships, work, I expect each person to pull their own weight and show up fully. And I know that daughters are showing up in their family. So it really started with some of those personal noticings. And let me tell you, it's really hard to see, where is there a gap? Where is there something we're not talking about? That's like somebody showing you a picture and being like, what do you not see on this page? And it's so difficult. But in some ways, I feel like that's how my brain works. I go to a party and I think, who's not here? Or I watch a speech on TV, like a political leader give a speech, and I think, what are they not saying? So I don't know if that's a skeptic or
no. But this is the true communication scientist in you. This is why you are a communication scientist, and I'm trying to teach my students the same thing. What is not being said, what is not being shown, what is not there. We can, as you say, we can learn from, and it has just as much importance as what we do hear and see. This is exciting.
Yeah, that's such a smart thing to teach your students, right? Because, the basis of education is me telling you what knowledge is already out there. But the next level and the way to grow and flourish with education and knowledge is to say, what else do we need to know? And that means that you have to notice what we don't know yet and go find it or create it or study it or ask about it. And that is really what that's how I followed that path all the way down to asking women, what is daughtering? What are you doing as a daughter? What is important? And I took both what they said, their words of what they said, but even as they were talking, I was realizing there's a lot that they are not saying because they don't have the right words for it. They don't have the words with nuance. And ultimately 10 years of research led to putting all that and the ideas together in a book.
So did you start working with daughtering? Was your PhD already about daughtering or yes? So yes. You already have a PhD?
Yes, it was. So maybe 2013, 14 is when I decided to write my main dissertation on this. And then I finished that in 2016. And so here it is, 2026. So it's more than 10 years of research and work and publications and new data as well along the way, as well as just personal observations that go into the book.
Tell me more about the book.
Yes. So the book is called Good Daughtering: The Work You've Always Done, The Credit You've Never Gotten, and How to Finally Feel Like Enough. And it is bright pink. And so it stands out on a shelf. You can get it, or you can order it if you're not in the United States. I am excited to tell you that it's being translated into German, and it's
That's
also
exciting.
Yes, and so that'll be available later this year. Is also being translated into Korean, so that will be helpful for some other readers, and we'll wait and see if there's more aspects. But basically,
do let me know when it's done in
Yes.
German, when it's out in German, so I can help
Yes.
you promote it in Austria. We can do some interviews.
Wonderful.
And we can, okay?
I would
Let's do
love
that.
to do that.
Yeah, great. Let's do that.
So what's in the book? Inside the book is a look at what is daughtering. And I talk about daughtering as labor. It's a form of work in the same way we often notice and think about parenting as work, but we also like it, but we also sometimes don't like it, or we're annoyed by it. It's not like we want to get rid of these people. We're just trying to identify that this type of work takes our resources in different ways. And that means that we're drained and don't have resources for other places. So the book is about that invisible labor. And why is it invisible? Why are we not talking about it? What are some ways we can talk about how women show up in families? And there's activities on every chapter for women to do to calibrate and calculate and notice our own daughtering. And then if we decide, after thinking a lot about our daughtering, to make some changes, there's activities about how to make those changes or what is meaningful in a good life. And then at the end, there's activities like how to talk to your mom or dad to make these changes, and how to create new traditions and new ways of doing daughtering in the future.
I cannot wait to read it. We should all read it. All of us daughters should read it. And listen, preparing for this interview, one of the biggest questions I had, and I'm sure many people do, is how is daughtering different from sonning?
Yes, that's a great question. And, it's important to say that sons are doing sonning. I have a wonderful partner, my spouse, who is a dedicated son, and I've learned a lot from him. And I have a teenage son and teenage daughter. And so I get to observe a lot of different sonning and daughtering dynamics, even in my own family. So men are showing up in their families and providing care, and more through the younger generations are choosing to do that. The difference is men are not expected to do it nearly as much. Men are not expected to call, to check in, to plan in advance, to talk to the other members of the family to make sure that the drama is reduced, to remember everyone's birthday and anniversary and every holiday, to bring all the food. Men are not expected to be the ones who provide access to the kids, right? I'm going to take them over to grandma's. Maybe they do. Maybe a man does say, today I'm going to my mom's house and I'm going to take the kids because she will want to see the kids. That's good sonning. But they're not really expected to do it. So then when sons do any kind of care and support things, we clap for them so loud. Oh, look at him. He's so good. Whereas for women, it's the bare minimum that we're expected to do for our families. And that's a big weight of expectation, responsibility, and obligation. And it gets really tricky for women to disentangle, what do I like doing? What am I good at doing particularly? What am I effective at in a family? And also, what do I not want to be doing? And I'm just doing it because it's always been done this way. So there are some important questions to ask ourselves.
But Alison, thinking about this topic, and I've discussed it with my best friend, as we discuss everything. What is really, really interesting is we had to become 50 to realize that maybe too much was expected from us. Because until now, when we started critically examining, and maybe because now we are running out of energy and time and have other things, now we look back and we are like, wow, why did we have to do so much? Why was this expected from us, A? And B, why was this not recognized, as you say, as work? Like, this was expected, it was delivered, and that was it. Nobody ever said, it's amazing that you bring us together. It's amazing you prepare Christmases for all of us. It's amazing you keep our marriage going sometimes even,
Yes.
It was taken, it was expected and taken and not acknowledged. This is why I think your book is so important, that women and also mothers, future mothers or mothers, realized we should not expect too much. And if we do, and if it's delivered, we should recognize it.
Yes. Yeah, that's so beautiful that you and your friend are able to share those discussions and go there to that place of that meta analysis, because that's often what we don't do because nobody else is talking about it. And then there's this loop or cycle where a thing never gets discussed because we're like, that thing about daughters who do stuff and show up, and we're using all of these words that are kind of like what we're trying to say, but not exactly. And so it's really hard to do meaning making and communication when we don't have the language. Well, part of the reason why we don't have the language for what daughters do in the daughtering role is because we tend to think of women as mothers and mother figures. We even talk about little girls as mothers to be, future wives. And many societies, culturally, still in this day and age, value women for our maternal features. So our ability to be caring, our ability to love and support people around us is praised as a mothering feature. And of course, that is beautiful if we're mothering, but I want to save my mothering for my kids. And I don't want to mother my husband. I don't want to be mothering him. I don't want to mother the people in my workplace, and I don't want to mother my mother because I'm not her mother. She had a beautiful mother, and we need to separate those things and notice that society's always trying to cast women as mothers. And while many of us are, and the women listening to your podcast are, there are lots of women who are not mothers and may never be, or may never have a maternal body. And so when any of us do care behaviors, we don't want to say that's mothering. We need to specify what type of caring we're doing. So when I take some soup to the neighbor, I am neighboring. I am not mothering them. When I, give my husband a pat on the back and a hug and I listen to his stressful day, I'm not mothering him. I'm partnering him. And these distinctions, they matter because humans are creatures of communication, and the way we communicate about our relationships creates meaning, creates knowledge, creates the building blocks of how we live our lives. So it really matters when we use the words or the language or the specificity that matches the role. And that's kind of my advocacy with daughtering. And saying, daughters can be all kinds of things. We can be caring, we can be loving, we can be grumpy, we can be a porcupine, we can be pushy, we can be annoyed. And all of those things are doing daughtering. And all of those things are valid. Daughters can be lazy and do nothing, and we're still worthy members of the family who deserve love. So that gives us a lot of ways to rethink How do I want to show up in my life when I get to decide?
But I have another question, and then we have to move towards mama. How much of daughtering do you think is projected on us or expected on us from the outside? How much is it expected from us, from ourselves? Because so often we discuss mothering a lot, and we started discussing that, and I especially started discussing this in this podcast, and it was so clear to me when I told my husband, I forgot what it was, and I was like, but I'm doing this and I'm doing that and blah, blah, blah. And he said, but nobody asks you to. And a light bulb went up like this, and I was like, oh my God, why am I doing all of this? Nobody asked me to. And I also wonder exactly that. Do you see a distinction? And can we somehow become aware of this? And how much can we control our daughtering? How much we invest into our daughtering? And how much is really expected from us? And how much do we expect from ourselves?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. What a beautiful insight from your husband to hopefully provide relief, right? That no one asks you to do that, not as a criticism, but as a relief, like saying, nobody asked you to walk down the street and pick up every piece of trash. You could choose to do that and be proud of it, but just recognize no one's making you do that. Well, as women, first of all, there are expectations on us from our parents, from society, from watching TV and movies and books and listening to songs that men don't understand, that they're not a rule, but they are an expectation that we gather. And we also learn these things from watching our mom with her mom, or our mom with her grandmother, or, our sister with her mom or mother-in-law. So we're learning and we're gathering these things and thinking, as women are creatures of community. Oh, if everybody else is doing that, then I should probably do that. So again, nobody asked you to, but so much of what we do as women is caught, not taught. We're gathering it ourselves and we're trying it out. But this is where we can reinsert logic. And we can say, do I like doing this? Am I good at it? Do I want to keep doing it? Does it contribute to a meaningful, purposeful life? And many women will say, yes, I want to see my mom every day. I want to cook for her and drive for her. I want to listen to all her stories and participate in her favorite hobbies and gardening and crafts. And if that makes you happy, girl, do it. That's feminism. We each get a choice. But many of us will say, no, I don't think I do want to be investing that much in daughtering, because my mom is a perfectly capable entity on her own, with her own partners and her own neighbors and her own work that she can do, and other children, sons, and so I think part of the beautiful work is seeing our parent as capable. They're not frail. They don't have to have us do everything, especially in the middle of our life. Maybe as they get older, they get more frail, but it doesn't mean that they're just weaklings. So you make a great point, and I talk about this in the book. We have to define good daughtering for ourselves, and then make an effort to let go of everything else that's not on our definition of good daughtering. And so I think that that's such an important, and we could go way much more into it, but a really important area to remember: we have agency to change our lives.
Thank you so much for this. And on that note, let's move towards Mama and learn from her and about her. Mama Pamela, will you tell me a little bit about her and her life?
Yes. My mom is Pamela, and she's a wonderful mom. She was just here this weekend. I had a big launch party for the book, and I get to spend a little bit of time with her and my dad, who still are together, live together, married. My mom had a difficult upbringing, and lived in poverty, lived with a single mom, lived with some trauma. And then when she was an adult, she decided that she was going to change those patterns in her family. And she went to go get her marriage and family therapy training. And she became a counselor or a therapist. And I was already an adolescent. So I was maybe 11 or 12 when she finished that. And I watched her do the work in her extended family with her siblings, with her mom, with our family, with the in laws. And that, of course, molded and shaped me a lot. And so when it came time to write some of these things over the past decade, my mom has always been so generous that she gives permission. She says, write whatever you want, say whatever you want. It's your story.
Yeah.
It's your truth, and I can handle it. And to look at my mom and think, she's strong. She's powerful. I don't have to be her protector. She will protect herself. She will uphold her emotions. That's such a generous gift that I recognize that not everyone gets. So I still didn't write everything I wanted to write in the book. Let's be honest, because I want to be respectful and I want to, but not embarrass her or make her have to deal with too many of my feelings. But I ran everything by her and she said, go for it. Those are great things to do. So she's just been super supportive, and she and my dad are very proud of the research and the book and the life that I've put together.
Tell me, just to get a general picture, so has she worked as a counselor then, or a therapist, couples therapist, or family therapist her whole life?
Family therapist.
Family therapist.
So she was maybe in her late 30s.
So she first had a family. I'm guessing she had a family, and then she created a career.
And, yes.
How many children did she have?
2 kids, my sister and me. My sister's older. And so she started working in her marriage and family career and did, 25 or 30 years in that career prior to recently retiring. And it was very impactful to see her working my whole life as well.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And your father obviously supported it.
Yes. And I would say that my father has been very generous, always about uplifting and saying, this is important work. This is valuable work. We all benefit from your mom's work. Yeah. And not meaning money, from her career, but her, but meaning
what she contributes. Yeah.
Yes. Her efforts to impact and influence our family relationships.
So, wow to Pamela. Wow to her gift of being a mom who didn't need to be taken care of. Let's learn from her. What would you share as maybe 3 most important lessons you've learned from her?
3 important lessons that I have learned from Pamela are: education is always a good idea. I have learned from her that people will surprise you. So keep looking and learning and watching and listening, but maybe the way they behave right at the beginning or what seems like what they're behaving isn't always the full picture. There's more to the story. And so we can be generous with people and the parts of their lives we don't know about. And the third thing I have learned from her is to lean on my faith. And that means in times of uncertainty. And, there's so much science you can do. There's so much education and science and learning and facts can take you. But sometimes we just need to lean on our faith. And for me, that's believing in a God who has a good plan for my life. And that doesn't mean every day and every single item is amazing, but the plan and the trajectory overall is good. And I can have faith in that. And that really is important for me as a scientist to mix in the idea of continuing communication science, but leaning on my faith.
Does faith, because, I was not raised in a family of faith. And this comes so often as a lesson learned from the mothers. And yesterday, when I was working on my Thank You Mama book and writing down or trying to distill these lessons from mothers all over the world, faith is such an important thing. So I have to learn how to understand that. Is it especially helpful in times of trouble, having faith?
Well, it is faith is always is especially helpful in times of trouble because it is a way to remember that difficult things will happen, but they will also stop at some point. And so there's non-faith ways to say that are like there's a light at the end of the tunnel, there's a rainbow after the storm. But my belief is that those are not just serendipity, that there's a higher being and there who is wanting good things for me, even though we live in a world that is separated from all the best things that we can have. And that if there's a higher calling on my life, meaning I am not just tripping through the years and through the job and relationships with people and everything just happens to occur. But these are things that are being put together for my good. And also the difficult things contribute to my life in a way that works out for the good. Many of the difficult things I've gone to teach me lessons, give me fortitude and resilience, and that I don't have to wish those away, but I need to learn from them. So faith kind of lets me get through the difficult times. But even in the beautiful times, so I've recently had this book come out and I've had a little bit of media attention. I've had some attention in my community. There's part of me that is like, this is so awkward. And why me? And what do I do? And faith helps me know I'm right where I'm supposed to be. If I know that I am living inside my purpose that God has intended for me, and I only know that by being in communication with him and through study and listening to people in my life who also contribute to that messaging, then I can also accept the good things that come, even when I can see those good things aren't happening to other people, or not everything good in the world is happening, but I can be happy for my good things at the moment. So it lets me do both. Faith allows me to accept the good and the bad that come into my life, that I'm a worthy person to have those things happen to. And I'm also not an exception to the rule. I'm going to have bad things happen as everyone does.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Allison, do you mind if we go back to People Will Surprise You? Because this is such a fascinating and unique lesson. Would you elaborate a little more about this? I heard it's not necessarily negative or positive surprise. It's not like, oh, watch out, people will. But there's also a positive moment in there where you give them a chance because you never know what's hiding there. Is this how I should understand this lesson?
Yes, you explained it quite well. The lesson is that people, the way that I understand other people is by what they're saying, what their face is doing, and how they behave. So if they show up for something, I generally interpret that as they want to be here, or they're interested in me, or we're connecting. At the same token, if someone doesn't come to something, I may think immediately as a human, they don't like me. They're not interested in me. I'm not important. And the lesson that my mom has given me, and it came from so much of her training by talking to families, by investigating marriages, by learning the tools, is that people have a lot of things going on, and some of them are really difficult, some of them are really positive, and just the people don't always process all the things in their life really well and then show them easily to others. So we're all kind of have a first level of ourselves, and then there's a second level, third level, fourth level. And I needed to learn that lesson, and that lesson's been important to me because I am a person who what you see is what you get. Very much.
Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
if it's a sad day and you say, how are you? I'm going to say low. I'm low today. I'm sad. And I don't really hide a lot of myself or want to, but other people do. They don't always show up in person in front of me with all of their life and background story available to me because they are afraid of that, or they don't even know how to show it. That's even a skill of intimacy to give that to other people. So just knowing that I need to take a multi-phase approach to learning about people and understanding them, and it does help avoid judgment and criticism.
Thank you. Thank you for elaborating. It's an important lesson. And for the end, the super important topic, is there anything you wish your mother has taught you? Anything she wasn't able or didn't teach you and you had to learn yourself?
My mother was very quick to tell me that it was okay to quit things when they didn't work for me or they weren't right. And I had to teach myself a little more discipline and fortitude, because I really did, looking back, I really feel like her version of love was to say, if that's not working for you, quit it, leave it. Now, that didn't apply to marriage. Always with marriage and education and marriage.
Okay.
Keep going.
Yeah.
But so many other things, that maybe a workout regimen or a new club that I joined, or some new relationships, a friendship or a colleague, and then I would say like, oh, this is like this. And she'd say, well, just let that go. You'll find something else, and you can. And there came a point where I began to feel like there were too frequently messages of let that go. You can quit. It's okay to stop. And on one hand, it's very generous and kind. And on the other hand, I felt like I needed to learn more fortitude. Like an example would be in my finances, saving money and being responsible. It requires fortitude. It requires grit. And you can't give up just when it's hard and be like, oh, I'm just going to quit that savings plan. So I had to teach myself that. And I will say that I learned from my husband and friends, but I've also learned a lot from my in-laws, from my mother-in-law, who is a lovely, wonderful woman who's taught me so many lessons that I didn't get to talk about today. But I'm grateful for those people providing me other lessons too.
You saw me nod a lot because my mother was the same. And only when I became grown up, and I always enjoyed that freedom. But later on, I looked back and I was like, man, I wish I learned more discipline. And as you say, the grit and just to stick with things. And unfortunately, my husband warns me that I tend to do this as a mother. The moment I see discomfort in my son, I'm like, but just don't, and my husband is trying to correct this. So I'm learning through him and through mothering and through my husband to be like, you know what? Maybe it's good for you to just push through. And it has shown to be fantastic. You should hear my son play Bach on his piano and now organ. But yes, big nods for me. Thank you for mentioning this. This was extremely unique. In 190 interviews, I haven't had this lesson.
Okay.
Yeah. And on that note, thank you so much for being my guest. Thank you for writing the book and doing all this research and supporting mothers
so much,
and
Anna.
especially daughters. I will put a link in episode notes to your book so people know which book we talked about and where they can order it. And thank you again.
Yes. And also, if you will put a link to Daughtering 101.
I will do that.
On Instagram. I would love for people to find me on Instagram. Thank you so much for this experience. Yes. Yeah. I appreciate you, Anna.
Thank you. Thank you so much again. If you enjoy Thank You, Mama, and want to help it grow, please take the 2 seconds to leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts. It really helps. If you'd like to get in touch, you can send me a mail at info@thankyouMama.net. You can also find me on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter under Anna Teider, that's Tajder. This was Thank You Mama. Come back next week, subscribe, and tell your friends.